Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Huddle. I've got some breaking news this morning. The president backing off his 48-hour timeline that he gave Iran to reopen the Strait of Hormuz. He did that this morning. Basically, the country now has 5 days after what the president called, quote, productive talks to end the war. This obviously comes after he threatened Saturday to bomb their power plants and their energy infrastructure out of existence if they didn't fix things with the Strait of Hormuz. The question, of course, is, did he really get something, or is he backing down because he's having second thoughts about crossing this sort of Rubicon? Or maybe there's no point, there's a point of no return. We're going to discuss that. We'll also talk about the president sending ICE into airports. As soon as today, he's saying that could potentially alleviate these TSA backlogs. We'll see. You will want to hear some of my reporting from yesterday. Actually, this morning I sent it out, but I made a bunch of calls yesterday to senior Democrats asking them how they would react. It was actually emboldening them, making them less likely to make a DHS deal before spring break. So we'll talk about that. Also, some whispers surrounding Chuck Schumer and his leadership job. Is it in trouble?
Those aren't whispers.
Uh-huh.
They're pretty loud.
Whispers.
They're loud, but what do they actually mean? I mean, we'll get into all of that, of course. But before we do, Dan, I got to tell you, I might be needing to call All Family Pharmacy because if you can't hear it in my voice, I am sick again. Second time in 2 weeks.
Yeah, I actually heard you almost hacking up along here just a few seconds ago. Look, so she's doing the show here. She's coughing. No doubt Skyla's in the other room. If Rachel needs a prescription, if Skyla needs a prescription, we would recommend you go to allfamilypharmacy.com. It's so frustrating and just outdated to have to go down to your local pharmacy, wait in line. Sometimes, you wait forever and ever. You get up there and they say, give us another 15 minutes or come back in an hour, which is always just drives me bonkers. All Family Pharmacy can really help you with that. You just fill out a short medical form. A licensed doctor reviews your request. And if appropriate, let's assume it is, they will provide you the prescription. It ships directly to your door. Things like antibiotics, whatever medicine that you need, it is likely that they will have it. Go to allfamilypharmacy.com/huddle and use our code huddle10 to get 10% off your order today.
Thanks to All Family Pharmacy. And in the meantime, I've got my box of tissues here, and we'll try to remember to silence my mic when I sneeze.
That's all right.
Give me in advance, all the folks watching. Just a quick look at the daybook. 10 a.m., the Supreme Court hears Watson versus RNC. This is a question of whether mail-in ballots postmarked before Election Day can be received afterwards. Thoughts real quick on how they're going to rule on that. They're not going to rule today.
No, they're just going to hear the case.
Yeah.
I mean, it's wild because you even have some southern states saying, no, stay out of this. Let us do this.
Sean?
But this goes to the whole idea that it's possible it could be fraudulent, but we've done this for, 70 years. We've let people do this, including the military.
Well, I think that's the $1 million question. Alan Dershowitz is on my show tomorrow, and I'm going to ask him this specific question because what is at heart of this case is, quote, what is Election Day?
Yes, correct.
And so I have a feeling that I don't know, because it's weird. I mean, the postmark, you should be able to say you have to have shown that you voted prior to Election Day. I don't think that shouldn't be controversial at all.
Yeah.
But the second is, when is it over?
Yeah.
And that's what's going to be the difference. There is a difference, I think, between like mail from a ship or something like that, where you're at the mercy of other people versus the U.S. Postal Service. I mean,
Al Gore would be president if this was strictly enforced right now, or he would have been president. Yeah.
Well, no, but I guess the question, and this is what the court's going to have to grapple with, is what that definition is, because there are different things. Mailing a ballot from Alexandria, Virginia to downtown Alexandria, or from California to Alexandria, versus if you're at a forward operating base or on a ship, you don't have the same guarantees. And the problem with military ballots is it's not like me or you or Dan can decide I'm going to go down and vote tomorrow, or I'm going to get my absentee ballot and then I'm going to, use the post office. If you're the military guys can only vote when they get access to the ballot and then, drop it on their ship or in their fob, and it goes forward. You're less at the whim of like normal circumstances.
Yeah, right. Well, we'll keep an eye on that. 1 o'clock today, the president's traveling to Memphis to headline an event, Memphis Safe Task Force, basically focusing on fighting crime in the city, deploying the National Guard there, Secretary of War, Pete there too. The president will speak at 1. The Senate, which was in through the weekend with the whole Save America Act debate, they are on schedule to confirm Markwayne Mullin as Secretary of Homeland Security tonight. And Rahm Emanuel attends a town hall in La Crosse, Wisconsin. This was after he was one of the.
He was campaigning for Wisconsin Supreme Court justices, judicial candidates, I guess you would call them.
There you go.
Yeah, he continues to just inch along out there.
Yeah. Well, we'll talk about another 2028 hopeful, Andy Beshear, who I didn't tease in the top, but some interesting things going on with him. We'll get to that in a bit here. First, guys, if you haven't subscribed to our channel, please do so. Go to YouTube, and you can search for us at the DC Huddle. Subscribe, and if you've already done that, send this link to someone else who you think might like the show. Helps us get more eyes on it, get our numbers up. Really, truly support that. Okay, let's jump in. We originally were going to start with DHS and ICE and airports, but because of the president's tweet here, or truth, I should say, we juggled things here. And let's pull up the president's tweet from this morning.
Truth.
Sorry.
Yeah,
tweet,
come on.
Potato. Okay, here we go. He says,
except for he owns Truth. He doesn't own X.
He says, I'm pleased to report that the United States of America and the country of Iran have had over the last 2 days very good and productive conversations regarding a complete and total resolution of our hostilities in the Middle East, based on the tenor and tone of these in-depth, detailed, and constructive conversations, which we will continue through the week. I have instructed the Department of War to postpone any and all military strikes against Iran's power plants and energy infrastructure for 5 days. So, Sean, let's just start with you, because what's the word on the street here? Is it that he actually is getting somewhere with Iran, which is surprising given that
Iran this morning said we've had no talks whatsoever.
Well, right. And they've been very much sticking it to us and not caving lately. Or is it that he's thinking about what the consequences are if he goes for their electric grid and the repercussions of that?
Oh, I think it's door 3, which is you just need a little more time to stage this. You're getting everyone properly positioned. So I think it's kind of I still think we're probably in the 80 to 90% of some kind of. I am in a, put it this way, just to bottom line this, I am in a belief that there will be a force that will take Karg Island. Once that happens, you are basically crippling the Iranian commercial capabilities. That's where they're getting so much of their ability to sustain themselves. You take that, and then I think it's game over for the Iranians.
Dan, the big question is, in these 5 days, does Israel listen? Do they stop?
Well, I mean, forget 5 days. Right now, this morning, the headlines were they're bombing infrastructure. They turned the lights off in part of Tehran. So one, it's fascinating he does not mention Israel. 2, we've gone from total surrender to now a resolution. But as I said, Iran this morning is saying we've had no discussions directly or indirectly through intermediaries. So usually when Trump tosses the shiny red ball, in my opinion, this was 100% 2 things. One, as Sean said, they're getting ready to invade. Lindsey Graham this weekend compared it to Iwo Jima, which didn't go over very well in his own party.
Right.
But 2, this was going to be a brutal morning because the markets were in a bad place before the bell this morning. And I think he wanted to shift the narrative off of kind of, Rachel, as we're going to get to in your reporting, the TSA kind of like mess with the SAVE Act and everything. Iran kind of appears to be a little bit of a mess. And so we're all talking about a new piece of information that Trump offered. I think the problem is, let's say this is true. Then what did we get? We haven't destroyed their missiles because they literally launched one at the Diego Island, one that hit Israel, 2 that tried to go to Turkey. So we haven't taken out the missiles. We haven't taken out the nuclear program. We haven't taken out the regime, and the strait is still closed. So even if you wanted to believe this, I'm really fascinated now. Trump is being mocked online right now because the Iranians are saying we had no, and Iranian media is saying he's back down. All these commentators on X right now are saying, huh?
Yeah, of course, this is going to feed into
I'm watching the poll.
favorite taco line or whatever. What does it stand for again? Trump, what is it? Trump.
Yeah, Trump always chickens out.
Yeah,
I actually,
really
I think that people say this at their own peril. I do think that, I have a feeling
Yeah,
that
of course.
Well, I was going to say, it's interesting that Sean is saying there's this door 3, which is like, it's not that he got something. It's not that he's chickening out. It's literally just, we're just making sure everything's in place, that we're ready.
Well, but hold on though. I mean, back up for a sec. Now what you're talking about, and I agree with Sean, an Israeli official anonymously told the Wall Street Journal this weekend, those troops aren't going there. They use my line, by the way, for vacation. They are going there to get ready to invade. Like
that's to Sean's point,
right,
which is they're just getting ready. But it's interesting because there was an Axios story, I think it was Friday night, maybe it was Saturday morning, suggesting that the Trump administration was gearing up posture for peace talks. Jared Kushner, Steve Witkoff already in briefings about how they want to engage in peace talks. So, and I guess Scott Bessent was asked about this on Sunday, and he said sometimes you have to hit. What was there? It was like sometimes you have to hit harder.
No, you have to escalate to de-escalate.
Escalate to de-escalate. That's what it is. So I don't know. It's hard to read. Like, is it peace talks? Is it like we're getting ready to pass the point of no return? And
look, I think the problem is, and I think this just Sean, you're probably gonna disagree. I think the problem is Trump. It really feels like is road testing different contours of success. I mean, over the weekend, it feels like 20 years ago, he was like, the Strait of Hormuz isn't our problem long term. Like, you all need to deal with it because you get your oil from it. In other instances, he's like, you have to reopen the strait. He keeps kind of shifting around with these road testing. And I think he's trying to find something that sticks and that we can settle on, kind of define it and get out. But the facts keep interfering. For Iran, victory is the regime remaining in place and they keep the nuclear materials. That's it.
But Dan, I will say, I don't necessarily totally agree with you. I disagree with you, but there are different audiences and he's speaking to each one. So in the case of the Europeans, look, we get 2% of our oil. They get all of it. They need to care about this a lot more than we do, right? You've got the NATO Secretary Mark Rutte coming out and talking about the existential threat. We saw missiles that got launched from Iran, to your point. Wake up call to Macron and to Starmer. They can hit you. Yep. Like the idea that like Europe doesn't seem to understand the threat that they face and that we're once again bailing them out is a big problem. And so I think he's making it clear to them, but he's also making it clear to the Iranians that like, I can continue to pummel you guys if you don't do the smart thing.
Well, I think the issue is I'm not sure he can continue this into the fall. But this is the $1 million question. And now I think the thing to watch today is the next 2 days, to Sean's point, is the market's all swung because they think he's potentially trying to exit. But when it becomes apparent that 10,000 troops are getting lined up on ships to go take, whether it's Carg Island, the shore, or some combination, plus the nuclear material, we'll see what happens.
Can I zoom in for a minute, though, on this? Say we do this, taking out, electrical plants, power plants, and oil energy infrastructure. We talked about it on Thursday or Friday, whatever day I was at the White House, about how once you do that, you can't just like rebuild overnight. It takes a long time. Sean made that point. Like, what about, you're going to have 90 million people potentially without water, without, healthcare, people on ventilators. Like, this is going to really impact not just the regime, but the Iranians on the ground. Like, could that be counterproductive for the president? Like, if he wants them to find some sort of leader who's more pro-America at some point. Doesn't that like shut off the door that make that very difficult if you start hurting?
Depends. That's one of the risks, is that the country rallies around or they say enough, we're going to rise up against the regime.
So maybe it's the opposite, that they say, okay, we are going to blame our own leaders for this and not.
It depends. There's a lot of stories increasingly about the miscalculation that the Iranians would rise up, but today there's a story about the Mossad continues to believe it's going to happen. So they're on the ground. We're not.
Yeah. Okay. Any last thoughts on this, and then we'll move to.
I can't believe it's not
one
even
point
9
of
a.m.
clarification, which is there's a big difference between hitting LNG facilities, et cetera, that impact the world market, and taking out their their infrastructure, like water and electricity. I mean, like there's less of a concern about what you're doing to their infrastructure than stuff that impacts the energy market.
Well, but you have to assume if we do this or the Israelis do it, there will be a response, and it will inflict, some blood on our allies.
Let's move on to some domestic politics here. So I don't even know where to start on this. So over the weekend, the president announced that he was going to send ICE into airports to try to help alleviate these long waits. I'm sure if anybody was on social media, you could see him going viral, all these lines, like people waiting for hours and hours to get to their planes. But as I mentioned at the top, like if he thought this was going to sort of push toward a deal, I mean, DHS has been shut down for now 5 weeks. It's actually done the opposite. I spent some time yesterday talking to some pretty senior Dems on the Hill, and the response I got was like, great, send them in. Like they think that the optics of ICE at the airports, armed guards kind of standing around, is actually going to help them. They think that this is showing that the White House is getting worried about getting blamed for these lines going into spring break. Like, point being that, like, I feel like we are further from a deal today than we were even just like a couple weeks ago, or at least as far. So Dan, just start there, because like you have said that you hope Democrats will sort of see sense on this, realize that the homeland is under threat and that DHS needs to open. But like, from my understanding, like they are doing no such thing right now.
Well, I think there's two things. I said this on Friday, that there was a reason that they were digging in, which is that the polling on immigration remains very strong. So you've seen the White House kind of incrementally making more and more robust offers to Democrats, and Democrats continue to say like, hey, good, but we need more type of stuff. And Republicans have been offering it. I think that what is to me bonkers about the White House right now is we've said for the last few weeks, if I were the White House, I would have members of Congress out at airports and talking continuously about these lines getting longer and the chaos, and stick to that message. But throwing ICE agents at the problem, and then last night, Trump putting the SAVE Act up as, we will not address this, TSA, DHS, until you address the SAVE Act, to me is insanity. Now it looks like Trump is chaotic. Republicans are extreme. And we can say, okay, they're blocking it because they're focused on the SAVE Act. I can't believe the gift that we're being given here. Twice.
I'm not sure I fully agree with that. The funny thing is, I have a sort of a counterintuitive way of looking at this, which is the following. The lines are insane. I mean, they're talking about, there was a video of the Hartsfield Airport in Atlanta this morning where you're talking about 4 or 5 hours. People who were there 5-6 hours are still missing their flights. The Democrats were finally starting to feel some pain. In fact, I would argue to some degree the Senate agreed to work this weekend so they didn't have to stand in a TSA line.
That's a good one.
Well, it's true. I mean, I think that they were like, I don't want to go have home because I'll spend my entire time in a TSA line or get seen cutting it. But the reality is that I think even if you argue that, I mean, the Tom Homan explained this really well. The ICE agents were there to, when you walk out of an airport, there's always that egress where there's a podium and a TSA agent or two making sure you don't go back in through the door. They were going to fulfill the exit and the entry spots to free up those TSA agents to go do the screening. So it makes a ton of sense. The problem is this. I mean, purely from, and as a guy who travels, I'm not arguing for this, but I just want to make sure. But like, if you really want to do this, why alleviate the pain, right? Why? I mean, make Democrats own this and say, hey, the lines are because of them. You're missing your flight because of them. The more you take the pain away, which is to make the line smaller, you're actually helping them. And so I actually think from a different standpoint, ICE agents hurts the cause. But that being said, Rachel, from everything I've gathered over the weekend, I actually think they are closer to a deal than ever.
I agree.
I think the gap is still pretty wide, but I wouldn't be surprised to see the contours of a deal in 24 hours.
I think Democrats are going to get everything but the masks.
So here are a couple things on this. And
I think there'll be a judicial warrants. It's going to be nuanced so that it's in hot pursuit. There'll be some nuance on that.
I want to go back to something you were saying, Sean, which is that why do this? Like, why make this? Why alleviate this problem when you can just allow it to sort of hurt and blame the Democrats on that? And that's one of the reasons why Dems I talked to have said they feel like the White House is chickening out on this because of that specifically. They say this is a sign that the White House is worried that the blame is going to fall on them. And that's why they're trying to alleviate the problem. And one other thing we should mention, this was in Punchbowl this morning, but some Republicans are now starting to say they want to pass DHS funding minus ICE. We've talked about that and how you don't get to pick and choose which agencies you fund. Like that has never been allowed before. Democrats have been pushing this saying, fund everything else except ICE and we'll give you the votes. Well, now, Ted Cruz, John Kennedy, apparently John Thune talked to the president about it this weekend saying, let's do that.
Huge mistake.
I'm not saying it's a good idea, but what it shows is that they're freaking out. Some of them are freaking out about the politics blowing back on.
But just think about this. If you turned on Fox, right? Love Fox, the last week and a half in prime time, it is at least a segment every single show is on the SAVE Act. There has not been the drumbeat on the TSA and on DHS shutdown. This is just the White House needs to look in the mirror. Like it is just, they're so distracted. I think ICE agents to the airport was a little bit of trolling the libs. Like, let me, kind of go after them and they're going to get all riled up. The base will love it. The base is a little frisky on Iran. The base is demoralized on the SAVE Act. Watch this, right? It's day trading. And it was like, oops.
Sean, do you think the White House, do you think it's more likely that there will be some sort of bipartisan deal with, just 8 Senate Democrats, just the minimum they need to pass this? Or do you think the White House is more likely to carve out ICE on funding and do it via reconciliation?
Do what during reconciliation?
Fund ICE via reconciliation. I mean, like that's the two options, right? Either they come to a deal and reopen.
ICE is funded for 3 years.
Well, that's
the additional funding that they want.
Funding, right.
Correct.
There is no scenario in which they carve it out.
There's no scenario. That's what I was, because I thought so initially, but the fact that John Thune was apparently talking to the president about that was surprising to me because it does set a precedent for other people to try to do this in the future, which is, semi-scary.
Danger. I mean, I think Republicans have got to realize that this will not go well for them in the long run.
Speaking of which, I should mention that in the House, apparently Johnson is going to be putting up some symbolic votes to try to put Democrats on record, keeping the government closed. So we expect that this week. I'm surprised they haven't been doing that all along. But now that SAVE Act is sort of complete.
Can I just say this? Like the one other thing on the SAVE Act, there are certain things like I think it was Van Hollen that came out this weekend. I tweeted it out. I'm almost positive it's him who said if cost wasn't a factor, a lot more of us could be on board. And I agree with this. Like I think Georgia did it to some extent. I think Virginia does it. Give free IDs. I'll pay for that. If getting election security, there's things that I'm as a conservative, I'm happy if that means that we get election security and we have to guarantee an ID to people who can't afford one, I'm in. And I think Republicans could take that argument right off the table so easily. Because again, one of the big things for Dems is, women can't do this because they don't know how to do it. Black people, my God, they can't, according to Kamala Harris, they don't know how to copy things. And then it's just too expensive. I think that we take that one off the table and just say, great, we will provide the funding to anyone who can't get an ID.
That's a lot of federal funding, but that's great.
We'll do it too. Treat it the same way that you would if you qualify for any other federal benefit. And say, great, if you can't do that, but I'm willing to pay for that.
Okay.
One last question on this before we move to Schumer. Like this whole notion that the president is saying, I will not sign a DHS bill unless I get SAVE Act or Save America Act, if Democrats give on that. Is that just like a posturing?
Well, wait, hold on a second. But you have to preface it by saying a week ago, his administration said he absolutely would sign it before the state. So just Republicans will be asked.
Clarified that. Is this just a negotiating thing, or is he gonna? Sean, I can't see him vetoing a DHS deal.
Red meat.
Well, I think part of it is to try to get the Senate on board. I mean, like get the senators to I don't know. Ultimately, if they could get a deal on DHS and then figure out how to sequence this, he might be okay. We'll see. I don't know. I feel like he's got some people around him that are saying, force the Dems' hand on this.
Yeah.
Well, let me ask you guys both. The headlines this afternoon will be in conservative media: the SAVE Act, TSA, Iran.
Oh, what's going to be the #1 headline?
Yeah, I mean, this is the problem, right? They're all it's shiny red balls everywhere. And I just think the average person's like, get my line reopened. Well, and now what I'm hearing is you're saying SAVE Act.
We'll see.
I actually think
I don't think a lot of Republicans are going to be happy about, Hill Republicans. Obviously,
I think this will be determined on like what the latest is. As I said, I feel like we're pretty close on DHS. There's no question that the lines are getting long and longer by the minute. So who knows? And then on Iran, I think I would actually vote that's probably third, only because the president bought some time this morning by saying it's going to be 5 days until I do anything.
Yep.
I am very curious if you guys are right that there is some sort of deal in the next 20
By the way, just remember this. The last time he said, I'm giving a few days, he went and got Maduro the next. So
to be clear, the people I was talking to are not going to be the ones who would vote for something like this, obviously. And all they need is 7 or 8. So there you go.
Well, no, I mean, look, they will, Rachel, if they get basically 9 out of the 10 things they demanded. Then they will.
We'll see.
It's just
no, man. I don't know. I understand why they should, but the will is a different thing. So we'll see.
Yep.
All right, let's move on to Schumer and his future. So the Wall Street Journal had this story on Friday night. Sean initially sent it around and we were chatting about it over the weekend, but it suggested that there was this mutiny afoot by some Senate Democrats to try to get Schumer to step aside as leader, or at least make some sort of promise that he's not going to lead next time, that he's going to be retiring when he's up for re-election in 2028. I have covered a lot of Senate leadership elections before, and this story to me, I mean, Dan, I'm curious you're talking about, to me it seemed like some sort of desperation, honestly, by the people who want him to step aside. I mean, realistically, it's not going to happen. I mean, like, you can't beat someone with no one. Brian Schatz, who's the person who's expected to sort of succeed him, is not going to run against Schumer. Anybody who does is going to get probably crucified in a private vote. Because again, guys, this is a secret ballot vote. So senators do not have to tell you how they're going to vote. And I just feel like a lot of senators, yes, they like to complain publicly about Schumer's leadership. The base loves it. People eat it up. But privately, a lot of them give him a lot of space to do what they think he needs to do to lead. So, but I'm curious, Dan, though, what you made of this. Like, is he in trouble?
I mean, I think yes and no. I think winning cures all. So if we win the majority, he is probably safe, because at the end of the day, as you say, in a private vote, he'll say, look, I delivered the majority for you and guided us through what was a difficult period. The problem I think he has is the Mitch McConnell problem, which is increasingly the party is evolving, and he is a, mainstay of the past. He is that Clinton wing of the party. Remember, he rose because he was a great fundraiser. He was close to the New York business community. He was not a progressive. That's why Schumer that's how he made his name. It's why Harry Reid made him DSCC chair. Now that is a liability. And I think that increasingly let's see how some of these primaries play out. But I do think the party is leaving him behind. I think his own state is becoming a little more dicey for him. And I've said this before, if he runs in 28, he's going to face a primary from the left, and he's going to have to savage that person. And it is hard to go to war with your base and survive in the long run. And that's where he is today.
Do you think he ultimately will end up making a promise that he will not run again?
No, because it'll weaken him. But I do think he will keep his options open about what.
So 2 points on this. One, the timing in this is like insane. The Democrats actually have a theoretical path to majority. I don't think they'll do it, but I think that if you're Schumer, the last thing you want to be out there saying like, look, we could take the majority. We could be in charge. We could stop the Trump agenda.
Right.
And this is what is this Dan loves talking about chaos on the right. I'll mention it on the left. Like, this does not look good.
Yeah,
the second thing is the Senate is probably the clubbiest club in the world. It is like, and the idea that Chris Murphy from Connecticut is willing to go on the record. It's one thing, because normally it's behind the scenes, it's backstabbing, it's whatever, and basically say, yeah, a lot of people are calling me and saying they don't like the guy, and da-da-da. He was asked about it on the record. Like, even though he's spoken about this, he was asked about it on one of the Sunday shows this weekend, and he wouldn't deny it. I mean, like, that's not, if you're Schumer, I mean, Senator Murphy is not Schiff or Bernie Sanders. I mean, like, he's not like, so that is not a good sign. He's your neighbor in Connecticut.
Murphy has increasingly tracked to the left, it feels like.
But the fact that Elizabeth Warren is a part of this, the fact that Van Hollen did not, dispute that kind of if asked, I will serve, like, to Sean's point, it's just the natives are restless. And that is, look, in 2006, when Harry Reid was leader, you would have never had other senators going and supporting primary challengers to the DSCC's people the way they are right now. Like, that lack of discipline, that kind of willingness to publicly blow off your leadership. We talk about Hakeem Jeffries' weakness, but that is a different, I mean, this is what happened to McConnell. People started taking shots in Republican primaries. Trump was on a different page. It just slowly but surely, it just chips away.
Yeah. Two little nuggets from the story to pull out. You mentioned Murphy, Sean. The story actually leads with Murphy apparently telling a bunch of private donors that they're keeping a list of Democrats who would vote against him. Now, Murphy does go on record and saying he thinks the comments were just like taken out of context. So even though he's not saying people have questions about Schumer's leadership, he didn't stick by that lead in the story, which I thought was interesting. The other thing I would say is Warren basically accuses Schumer of lying in the story. That's like that's a big deal. Like, that's a big deal. Anyway, we'll keep track of this. But before we go to our next topic, we have got to talk about. Go ahead. Did you have something you want to add on that?
No, you want to be cozy when you're talking this topic.
Well, no, I will, but I just want to, I mean, Rachel, you mentioned masks and the DHS. I don't mean to take us backwards, but President Trump just and said, I'm a big proponent of ICE wearing masks as they search for and are forced to deal with hardened criminals, many whom were let into our country by sleepy Joe Biden and his wonderful quote, border czar Kamala. She never went to the border, though they're absolutely insane open border policy. I would greatly appreciate, however, no mask when helping our country. Thank you, President DJT.
Oh, does that mean they're not going to
wait. Say that he ended it by saying what?
He ended it by saying
no mask when helping our country out of the Democrat-caused mess, all caps, at the airports, etc. Thank you, President DJT.
Okay, so that was a big question, and that was what one person was like, can they please show up to the airport wearing masks? Because the optics of that are going to be very bad. So they will not be in masks as they show up to the airport. Do you think that they're still going to be there by Friday, Sean?
Well, I mean, as soon as it reopens, I told you,
You think
no,
the whole time
I mean, the answer is no.
By the way, you're now, so it's now 9:05. You are now playing on Democrats' turf. You're now talking about masks. And you're saying they won't be on. Like, Sean, I don't say this very often, but this White House is beginning to look foolish. And I've never said
that all the time, Dan.
I mean, look at what you just threw out into the ether.
Okay, we're going to talk about Andy Beshear in Kentucky, but first we're going to talk about Sean's pajamas, because Cozy Earth.
He's going to need a good night's sleep tonight. Yep.
No, I sleep fantastic, and I sleep even better in my Cozy Earth pajamas. I'm telling you, you guys know this last week. Where's the tag here? I bought it. I got the first layer ones, and then I bought the bamboo pajamas. You will never, you have to get both. And I'm telling you, the cool part about Cozy Earth, I've said this almost every time I've talked about them, is you can't go wrong with anything that you get from there. And whether it's for yourself or a gift for a friend or a colleague or a loved one. In fact, that might be the perfect work gift. Here's something for you. But they literally, I have so much Cozy Earth now in my repertoire, in my wardrobe. the joggers, the pajamas, the mask. I mean, I love all this stuff, and it's comfortable, it's breathable. I love this stuff. So if you're looking for something for yourself, especially as we go into spring and you've got the winter pajamas, switch in to the first layers or the lighter bamboo ones, because I'm telling you, they're fantastic. Go to cozyart.com. You save 20%. Just use them. Use the code like I did. We use our own code, Huddle, 20% off. All go nuts. Go nuts. Thank you for your attention to this matter.
All right. Thanks to Cozy Art. All right. So President Trump, obviously he's Democrats' top nemesis, and some of the most party's ambitious leaders, though, are starting to look past him and look at JD Vance. Example number one this weekend, Andy Beshear of Kentucky. He was traveling to Ohio, and he basically took shots at the vice president. He said that in Hillbilly Elegy, which is obviously the famous book that Vance wrote, he accused Vance of trafficking in stereotypes. Let's see. It is poverty tourism because he ain't from Appalachia, the governor said. So he's taking shots at the president or the vice president here. And, Dan, I have to say, I have heard some Democrats say that the 2028ers are focusing way too much on the president right now. Obviously, That's easy to score points with the base, but he's not going to be on the ballot in 2028. So increasingly, they should be looking at who that person is going to be. So smart.
Well, I think it's two things. One is, look, we've all said that Governor Beshear is not going to win a personality contest on some level.
Right.
But what he's doing is, I think we would all agree, one of JD Vance's strengths is his biography and his story and his association with Appalachia and the working class. Well, one of the oldest political tricks in the book is to go at someone's strength and attempt to turn it into a weakness. So the most obvious on the Democratic side would be the Swift Boat veterans against John Kerry, right? Take his Vietnam service compared to George W. Bush, who did not serve, and flip it into Kerry is weak and a liar, and there's holes in his biography, whatever, right? In fact, it was Chris LaCivita who led that effort on the outside. What I'll be curious about is, one, does Beshear back this up? Does this become a talking point everywhere he goes? Just pound, pound, pound. And do others in the party add on to this? Because if not, I think the tree falls and nobody hears it. It was a JJ Jefferson Jackson dinner or whatever they're calling it in Ohio. But let's see, because if long term, you need to chip away at this with JD Vance, but it's going to be hard. He's pretty established on this front.
I was going to say, Sean, could this backfire on the Democrats? Sure. I mean, given his personal story, I mean, he clearly had some hardships growing up, serious hardships.
Sure.
Could this help him?
Yeah. First, one point of correction, Dan, and I know you George W. Bush did serve. He did not go to.
Well, yeah, in the yes, right. Correct, in the National Guard,
in theater.
Yeah.
I do think it can backfire. Calling somebody fake and not from there, that's dangerous because it's demonstrably false. I get Beshear. The guy is like what they like to refer to as a low soy beta tea or something. I mean, like, he's trying to find footing, trying to look like he's an alpha male. I actually think this is the problem, is that he's trying to be someone he's not, and attacking Vance for not being from somewhere that he is, and mocking his story, which is frankly well known and well documented. It reeks to me of desperation. It's one thing I wouldn't. This to me is sort of an ill taken strategy by Beshear. I think, to Dan's point, I'm not sure this is where I'd go at him from. He could say that he's inauthentic or that he switched his position. I mean, like, but to sort of mock his beginnings in something that's very well documented is sort of, and I don't know what it gets you. Like, I look and I go, okay, is the idea to say, like, you're a phony, you're fake? I don't know, because as I said, I think there's a bunch of other ways to address this. And I'm not, this to me is reeks of desperation.
But I'm not sure, though, because here's the thing. On the left, there was a lot of, attaboys, right? Like, they liked this. And I think what it does is it elevates the Beshear as, I am from Appalachia. This is my territory, right? Rahm, Gavin, Kamala, Shapiro, you're not, right? This is who I am. And two, I'm unafraid to go at what everyone thinks is JD Vance's, core strength. And I am going to just kind of go focus on trying to chip away at it. He may not be successful, But in a crowded primary where, Sean, I think you and I and Rachel, you probably agree, we look at Beshear and think, how do you break out? Right? You're just going to say, I'm 60% in Kentucky and I did this on healthcare or this on economic development. And the average voter's like, okay, how do I get into the game on social and into the trolling? And this is what he's chosen.
Well, yeah, I think that part of his argument does work, though. I think if you're saying part of that speech, he contrasts Donald Trump won here 55%. I actually won it here 20%. Yep. So like he actually can talk about being a winner in a place that's contested. That might attract people that are saying, look, who want a winner. One of the things that George W. Bush did in 2000 was come out and say, hey, guys, you want a winner? I know how to do it. I can. I mean, that's when Texas, on the heels of Van Richards, still was a, I wouldn't say purple, but, light red. Yeah. And he basically made the case, I'm a winner. I'm on the guy who has to bring people together, to bring Hispanics in the party. And everybody cleared the field, part of the seas, and said, okay, I think if you're Beshear, you make the case. Yeah, Gavin Newsom, you want to win in a blue state? Wow, that's tough, buddy. Yep. It's easy to appeal to the woke mob. I actually know how to have a winning strategy that can take us out of the desert. I think that would have been smart. This, as I said, not a smart one.
Dan, what do you think is the strongest hit on Vance? Would you say do you think this is the strongest?
Well, look, I don't know. I mean, again, I think you got to chip away at this. Right. And I think arguing about whether he really grew up in the Cincinnati suburbs versus Appalachia, that I've seen candidates take things that I thought you could never, chip away at and ultimately be successful. So, we'll see. I mean, it's Vance, I think at the end of the day is going to rise and fall to some extent on where Donald Trump is. If Donald Trump is popular-ish, right, I think Vance is in a strong position. If Donald Trump is not, Vance owns the whole pile, and that's his issue.
The one last thing I'll say on this is that traditionally, I get Trump isn't on the ballot, right? And that might be a very traditional, exactly. And that's a very traditional way of like, well, you don't want to go after him. But Trumpism, MAGA is on the ballot. If I were a Democrat, I would try to figure out, is there a strategy that says, I want to put an end to this, not Trump, but MAGA, Trumpism, America first. Like chaos, that to me, because you're missing the point. As Donald Trump says, I mean, this is the whole discussion that we have all the time about whether like the MAGA movement, who will own it? Where will it go? And if I'm a Democrat, I want to be the person saying, I'm going to stop the movement.
Well, don't underestimate too that some people think Vance is a phony, and that has appeared in some data that people have done. This is part of that, right? You're just chipping away. You got to do both. You got to take down their character and you got to define them on policy. It's all of the above game.
Yeah. Last thing I'll say is that may be a strategy. Going after where somebody grew up is a much harder strategy than them saying, okay, well, they flip-flopped on this issue or said that. That's a much stronger way, because it's actually, you can prove it. You can show clips. You can say this. Trying to argue that they're not from somewhere where they can show you that they're from, it's to me just not a smart argument.
Or they could argue like that he should know better, right?
Maybe they should ask for his birth certificate.
Well, no, I mean, like they could argue like Vance should know better, right? Because he grew up in poverty. He knows like how much gas prices like impact people. And yet there he is supporting the president's war with Iran, where diesel is now $5.
Well, and he was a venture capitalist, and he ultimately went on to, I mean, look, again, this is politics, folks. Yeah. This is not, people make these tactical decisions. We'll see if it works.
All right, let's move on to Media Monday. So Don Lemon got the New York Times treatment. Big spread of Don Lemon and how he, as we predicted on this show, used the president going after him and arresting him to juice his profile. Apparently, he's making some good money. Dan, I haven't read the story yet, but you were telling us some details about it. Like, what stands out for you on this story?
I think it's just that it epitomizes the way now that when one is attacked or kind of prosecuted, the way you can monetize it to become a celebrity for your side. Again, Trump masterfully took the indictments every time and flip to us against them. I'm being unfairly treated, and Don Lemon has kind of done the same thing. He is all over his Substack following and social media following dramatically increased after the arrest. He is a very popular figure on the kind of speaking and booking circuit now on the left. He says in the story he now makes more money than he made on CNN, which was a couple $1 million. So let's assume he's not lying. That's pretty good in our business. And it just is about the culture. And if you are in lockstep opposition to Trump in the media, you can monetize it.
Yeah.
So a couple things on this. Number one, I always love how the fact that all these media people who claim that they're not biased and that they're in pursuit of the news and Jim Acosta, Terry Moran, John Lemon, when they get fired from their legacy media jobs, suddenly they show us their real stripes. I think that goes unreported. Like, you remember when they were at CNN or ABC or wherever it was, I'm in pursuit of this. I'm not biased. I don't have an agenda. The second they get fired, they go out and start a Substack or whatever and show us how much TDS they have. Like, let's not forget this. Journalist after journalist, air quotes, literally every single one of them to a T goes out and becomes
Sean, not right here.
Okay, but you okay, that's I didn't put you in that same scenario. So the second thing is you notice how the New York Times loves to profile these folks. They're like, that's who gets the profile, never the person on the right who goes out and does something very successful or leads an organization. It's somehow they're the hero. And again, this is what's wrong with this legacy left-wing media. To me, that was what I found so fascinating about this, that suddenly they're the big hero. They go out and do all this. Everybody loves them. It's like a self-licking ice cream cone over and over again to themselves.
I would definitely read a profile. What his name is escaping me right now. The guy who did the Minnesota fraud.
Nick Shirley.
Shirley, yeah. I don't know that
Where's
I saw
his
the New York Times deep dive on him. Maybe there was. To be fair, maybe there was. No, I think you raised a good
and if
point.
there was, it would suck.
I mean, look, this was always one of the things that made me hesitate a little bit in terms of leaving legacy media, is that, like, when you leave and you sort of build your own thing, the money is in either leaning very left or leaning very right. Somebody like myself, who is just sort of cynical and skeptical and just asks questions and just loves the politics of it all. Is there a place in independent media for that, for people like myself? This has always been.
But I think that, like, look, do you guys think, where do you think the free press comes out? Barry Weiss is not CBS.
To me, they're centrist. But like a lot of people can a lot of legacy media would consider them a little more right. But like,
right. But I agree with you. I think that that's a fair set. I mean, my point is, I don't fully, I mean, like, you look at a lot of these people, and I agree with you. Generally speaking, you have to pick a team, but there's a lot in the middle, Matt Taibbi and some of these other investigative folks that have done a really good job of carving out a niche that's not one way or another, but is just good old-fashioned journalism, asking questions, writing stories. So I think there is there. I think what gets the attention in the New York Times profiles are stuff like this, are the Don Lemons and the Jim Acostas and the Terry Morans.
Look, it's always been true. Go back to talk radio. Who made the Howard Stern, Don Imus, Rush Limbaugh, people who were kind of in the shock game, right? Of saying things that were, shocked your conscience a little, got you to sit up, either laugh or, scream or whatever. So there's always been a source of entertainment, bravado that sells. And then conversely, people who are kind of dry and try to kind of go down the middle, we'll see.
Well, let's see if we can make the middle fashionable again. TBD on that. Come check back with me in a year, and we'll take a look at how my newsletter is doing. Okay, speaking of Media Monday, we have some tape to roll here. The president.
Oh boy!
You want to tease them, Sean?
Some shows just get, are killing it.
This is from when Sean was at the White House on Friday, right?
Yeah, you should be following Sean Spicer on Instagram, people. Hit it.
Spicer, where's Sean? Where's Sean? Great job. And he's got a very successful television career going. What the hell do I get out of it? Well, you know what? I get nice statements. That's what I get out of it, right? 100%. It's great. You've done great. Thank you very much. Congratulations.
Always makes you feel pretty good, Sean.
Yeah, that was, you getting the shot. Yes, it was it felt great. B, a little awkward in a room full of very high-ranking military officials to get asked to stand up and have the president of the United States praise you. That was not fun. And then the nice thing is, spent a little quality time in the Oval Office catching up with the president. I got to show him the cover of the book, and he signed it, which was kind of cool. So
very cool.
Fun. I mean,
very cool.
Very cool. And Dan had asked the other day, Rachel had been in the Oval when she was there doing pool duty. And so I took some photos and some B-roll, put it all up from the Oval Office. In fact, this morning, my post is I've now completed Trump has 3 presidential coins. And I just posted all 3. This is it's almost like, you get one a visit. But it was awesome to be in there.
Very cool.
And just for all the people who ask, what is Sean doing when his head is down on his phone during the show? He will neither confirm nor deny that he is texting with the president while he's watching. Can't say no names, people. We don't want to give up sources and methods, but Trump did say, congratulations. So
I will say one time I've called. So when I call him, sometimes he just jumps in and says, Rachel, what do you want? Or, but one time I called him and he asked who I was, where I worked. And I said, I'm independent media. I do a show in the morning with your former press secretary. He goes, oh, you guys do a great job. You guys do a great job. I'm like, have you really watched the show? Or are you just,
well, I know, so remember there's the watching and then there's the clips. And I will just, again, neither confirm nor deny, but I do know there's a lot of people who see it live, who watch it. And then there's a lot of people who have been shown or watched the clips. So that's what makes the show
respect
so
his
great.
Privacy. He watches what he watches.
For sure. All right, guys, let's take some questions.
Let's see.
Okay, Arjun, good morning. What do you think will be the impact of AIPAC in the 2028 election? It may prove to be a liability in the primaries, especially Democratic primaries, but how about the general? Will there be a mass exodus from party to party if it's an AIPAC-backed candidate versus an anti-AIPAC-backed candidate?
It's a great question. For those who haven't seen it too, I talked about J.B. Pritzker being the winner of the week. J.B. Pritzker used to be a board member of AIPAC, and I think he and the family were supportive. He was getting questions this weekend, didn't really want to talk about the family involvement with AIPAC. In both parties, I think it's becoming, in our party, it's a liability. Sean, I don't know if yet in your party, but it's not far from certain primaries, potentially people saying, I am America first, and I'm not involved with AIPAC.
Yeah, I do think we're a lagging indicator on this one as a party. It's still, more popular than not to be pro-Israel. I've said this before. They need to do a better job, Israel, that is, and AIPAC to some degree as a proxy for them of getting that message out, especially to younger Americans. One of the other things that was really interesting is David Axelrod was on a show over the weekend talking about the Illinois primaries that we discussed last week. And he was noting, and I think it's 5, it could be more, separate entities funded by AIPAC. And so this goes to Arjun's question. It's when you hear an ad in a lot of these, I think one of them was called like Progressive Women for Chicago or something. It was just an AIPAC proxy. They'll fund an organization. And remember, every time you hear like those ads, it's always like people who love people that love people things. It's just, you can set one up in, probably an hour, and then you transfer a bunch of money into it. And so AIPAC has gotten really smart about understanding that their brand might not be perfect in a lot of places. So what they're doing is standing up, basically doing pop-ups of political entities to funnel money into. I think that's where you're going to see a lot of this in 2028.
Let's take another question. Okay,
Raleigh.
good morning. Okay, Raleigh, okay. Question. Dan, if ICE agents treat travelers nicely, couldn't this backfire on the Dems, especially given that they have made hating ICE a central part of their 2026 campaign?
I don't know if I'd say they hate ICE. They want to reform ICE.
They've been pretty nasty to ICE agents.
Yeah.
They shouldn't have driver's licenses in California and stuff like that. But anyway.
I mean, actually, for those who haven't seen, I put it up on social media. What is it? Searchlight, the foundation, has put out this great memo about kind of how Democrats need to start thinking about immigration and talking about it and kind of a policy framework here. Yeah, sure. I mean, if ICE officials are there and handing out cookies and stuff, then sure. But at the end of the day, I think this is more of a stunt. You're talking about a handful of cities where they're going to send ICE agents. I think the bigger thing is ICE is changing. I mean, from where ICE was in January to where they are now, you don't hear them in the headlines except for TSA. They're not in these cities with highly confrontational made-for-TV moments anymore. They're more quietly doing their job, which is what Barack Obama did, by the way, in 2012. So,
Raleigh, the one thing that's interesting is I'm sure the ICE agents are always nice and polite. I mean, I actually am more worried of the inverse, which is if I were standing there, you saw some of the B-roll, these guys going in this morning, they're wearing their flak jackets. They've got, it says ICE police on them, whatever. I actually worry for their safety a little, or just for their mental health, that you have a bunch of TDS Democrats walking by them, yelling at them or calling them names. So, I think they will be the professionals that they normally are. I do worry about the abuse that they might get from people on the left.
It's actually a great point, Sean.
It'll be interesting to see. I wouldn't be surprised, by the way, in the next 24 hours if we see viral videos of somebody trying to make a scene at an airport going after them.
Yeah,
or
like
vice versa.
Spitting or yelling or something like that. Yeah. We'll see if things escalate. I will say one thing, and I had this in my newsletter this morning. I was just asking random people about this over the past 48 hours, not Democratic lawmakers, but random Democrats. And one Democratic voter said to me that if ICE can actually help the lines go faster, then they welcome it. So even though there's the hard line here with Democratic lawmakers in Washington, if this does go well, then maybe you're right, Raleigh. We'll see. Let's take it.
But the funny thing is, the causality of this, I just don't see it. Right. So right now, here's the problem. You don't have anything to compare it to. Right. So I go to the airport today. It's a 2-hour wait. I go tomorrow morning and it's an hour and a half. First of all, no one travels like that except real hardcore travelers. Right. So is there a causality? Do I go, wow, ICE helped me today? I don't think so. So I actually don't think that anyone's going to they may help. I just don't know that anyone's going to give them credit for it.
Yeah, we'll see. Let's do another question. Okay, will Israel claim Greenland is building a nuke? Jeez. All right.
I mean, that was so 2 months ago. Come on.
Come on. Let's take it.
I will say I am very curious how Israel talks about the news, this morning. I cannot imagine Netanyahu saying, yeah, unless they're, to Sean's point, they're truly the big one's coming, so we'll pause.
Well, there's other things they can do in the meantime, though, right? I mean, they're still.
They literally have said we're going to start hitting their infrastructure last night, and they have today. So
okay.
By the way, I do get when I see that question, I will say there is a bit of a chuckle that if you think back, 2 months, it was like Greenland. When are we invading? What are we doing? And everyone, it was Davos. So I guess, 2 months ago. Yeah. But just stop once in a while and think about the news cycle. The idea that 2 months ago we were talking about invading Greenland and the reality of that. And suddenly now it's Greenland's number 42 on the list. Yeah. It puts things in perspective as to how quick this administration operates.
Yeah, definitely. Okay. Question from RG 2088 question. As things stand right now, what percentage chance do you all give Democrats of winning back the Senate?
20. 30-40 is what I was going to say.
20.
I will say this. If we are still in Iran at Memorial Day, look at that. Poly markets, Republican, 52% think Republicans, 49% think Democrat. It did flip briefly, I believe, last week, 50.1 to 49.9 or something, Democrats. I would the two states that I would watch are Iowa and Alaska for that fourth. Texas is also there, but Iowa is a funny state right now. That is a state that people just kind of have an eye on.
Yeah, look at that.
I think I'm actually intrigued by this in the sense that if you look at the trajectory of that poly market on both ends, I would have guessed it would have stayed at steady state a little higher, where you see that line on both ends, the blue line basically staying at somewhere in the 30 and the Republican line in the close to the 60 something. The idea that they're now converging to me is fascinating, only because you got to wonder if that's just economic. Like once we went to Iran and prices spiked, if that was what made people.
Well, and I think that's part of the reason for that they're watching Iowa too, is just prices and farmers' frustrations and manufacturing with the oil costs and something funky. I will also say too,
Dan, let me ask you
they're
this.
more bullish on Ohio because of that governor's race right now.
If you had to
Democrats, I think today would win the Ohio governor's race.
Really? Oh, I don't know.
I think Vivek's got some structural problems.
That's. I mean, I'll tell you. I've said this before. One of the things that I wrote an op-ed 10 years ago, I think, called "Mechanics Matter," and it cannot be overstated. You campaign if you go into Ohio and you just think that I got a Trump endorsement or I've got name ID. You have to actually run a good campaign. You have to have a good candidate that runs a good campaign. Mechanics matter. And I don't think that enough attention has been paid to Ohio. I haven't. So I'll be interested to see what's going on there. Yeah. But I think that's it. And if on the poly market, the one thing that I'll be interested, Dan, real quick, I know we're out of time. Would you take that bet right now?
That Democrats win the Senate?
At 49.
No, but you're getting warmer. I do this. To me, it's getting eerily similar to 2006.
We'll see.
Yeah.
We are at time. Sean, what do you have coming up on your show? You said Dershowitz, or is that tomorrow?
Dersh is tomorrow night. Okay. Ron Johnson tonight. So we'll talk about the SAVE Act, Iran, DHS. We got a lot. I mean, he's going to we're getting our money worth out of Ron Johnson. And just to be clear, that's no money. And by the way, this is a guy, I will say this, Ron Johnson has been beating the drum now for months about why we don't just pass his bill, which says there never can be a shutdown. I hope I'm going to start with that because I don't know why. This is silly what we do.
Yeah.
By the way, I got a text from a Democratic source during the show, a chicken emoji and a taco emoji. So there's how Democrats are already starting to talk about this Iran delay.
Or they're hungry for a chicken taco.
Or they like chicken tacos, one of the two. Also, just before we wrap here, apologies. I apparently was having some audio problems. It turns out, once again, my mic was not plugged in and I was using my laptop. So for all those who put that in the comments, I'll have that right tomorrow. Thank you, guys. We will see you back at 8:30 Tuesday.